We're fixing one problem, but may have a catastrophic problem with the engine. Stay tuned. Hey everybody, welcome back to AutoAnatomy. My name is Sean. Thank you so much for joining us. We're back working on the Corvair today, and we're doing a couple of little things that are more of an annoyance than anything else. One of which is the washer pump does not work, which doesn't seem like a big deal. So you've seen the windshield on this car, you know it's not the greatest. So when it does get dirty, it's really kind of a pain. So I picked up a rebuild kit from Clark's Corvair. Today we're gonna pull the washer pump out, rebuild it, test it, and then hopefully get that back up and running again. Also have some news that may be a little bit challenging, and I need your help on this. You know, we put the engine back into the car after the clutch was changed out, and one problem I've been fighting with the car the entire time that we've had it is a little misfire. It's mostly at idle, but it's pretty noticeable. It also gets terrible mileage. Like I'll get like 70 miles to a tank of fuel. So my old Mustangs didn't get that bad of mileage. One thing I've noticed on it is that, you know, the valve adjustment is pretty sensitive, but I've got one valve that the difference between clatter and hanging a valve open is like a 1/16 of a turn. So it seems like that lifter isn't pumping up. Now I've replaced all the lifters previously, and it's got flow coming out of the push rod, but it doesn't seem like it's right. So stick around to the end of the video and we'll talk a little bit more about that. In the meantime, let's get started pulling the washer pump out and get it on the bench and see what it takes to rebuild this thing. Before we get started, take just a moment, click on that subscribe button and hit the bell to be notified when new videos come out. Comment below on things that you'd like to see with this channel, and make sure you share this video with your friends. So coming under the frunk, here is the wiper motor, and next to it is the washer pump. And I think the way this thing works is when the when the wipers are spinning, there's a little cam in here that presses on a plunger, and that plunger is what causes the squirting. But I'm not getting anything out of this thing. Now when you press the button in the interior here, here's the washer button, the wipers automatically, I don't know if you can see this, wipers automatically spin into the on position. So those will turn on, but I'm not getting anything from the pump when I try and press the button here. So let's pull the pump off and take it on the bench and see what it looks like. I'm betting it's probably got a torn diaphragm. To pull the washer pump off, it looks like we've got a couple of 1/4-inch bolts and some plugs there, and then just a few hoses. So hopefully we can do that without having to pull the entire wiper motor assembly, because to do that, we have to pull the entire cowl off. And, oh, you can't see that. That's for a future video. All right, let's get started trying to pull this thing off, and hopefully it can just come off with a couple of bolts. So looking at it, this came off kind of as I thought it might, and on the wiper motor assembly itself, there's a little 4-puck cam that drives it, and I don't see how this works. So let's take this guy apart and see what's broken. Let's get it on the bench. On the bench here, let's get this guy apart. I think the first thing to do is to pop this cover off. It's held in place with an E-clip. And under it, what do we have? Okay, so I can see the way this works now. So that little cam comes by and presses down on this follower, and that in turn causes this plunger to come. Okay, so I figured out how this thing works. It's pretty simple but ingenious. So as that cam spins around, it pushes down on this little follower. And what that follower does is there's a ratchet wheel on this side, and it pulls and tightens what feels like a spring in that ratchet wheel, and that ratchet wheel is pulling down on this plunger here. And let's see if I can do this. And it's winding up that spring, and I bet that it gets to a certain point and releases that pressure. Just right there. And that winding back and then plunging forward is what expels the washer fluid out of here. So that's cool. It doesn't look like we've got any broken teeth or anything on here. So I suspect that this is, yeah, and this is moving nice and freely. That's pretty ingenious. All right, let's take this off. We've got the 4 1/4-inch nuts on the top to pull the plunger assembly apart. So I picked up this rebuild kit from Clark's, and it's got all new plastic to replace the worn yellowed stuff here, some new nuts, new diaphragm, and some new O-rings. So let's get this guy apart and see what's in here. All right, taking the top off here. Oh yeah, you can see these washers are just flat as they can be, and it doesn't look like we actually have a torn diaphragm, which is surprising, but that's pretty nasty. So I need to spend a little time cleaning this thing up. I'm going to get some electrical cleaner and just clean off all the contacts here and see if I can disassemble this somehow, get that rust out of there, get this moving freely, probably clean up and, I don't know, maybe polish this shaft here a little to make it nice and free moving. And then we'll put it all back together and hopefully have some washers. We are now all completely disassembled, and you can see there's really not a lot of parts to this thing. We've just got the housing assembly. Here's the little cam that slides up and down with the ratchet pawl and the wheel, and not sure exactly how this motor works, but I'm going to take it and clean it. These are the parts that we're going to be replacing up here. This is the diaphragm and the plunger assembly. And then here is the little, actually, I guess the plunger itself. Need to get that off, and that's pretty rusty, as you can see. So we'll take all of this, get it cleaned up, try and get some of the rust off some of the pieces, makes it look a little bit nicer, put it back together, and hopefully we will have washers. So I've got all the parts out of the parts washer, and I think I'm kind of stuck for the moment because this is the lower bellows that the fluid is drawn into. And as you can see, we might have a little bit of a leak here. So this, unfortunately, did not come in the new kit. So I think I'm gonna have to reach out to Clark's and see about getting one of these, which may be, sadly, where the video stops, because I don't have that piece and it's gonna be a whole lot of useless without having a little bottom bellows. Well, apparently no one actually sells just the bellows anymore. They've been discontinued, and in the process of looking to see if I could find one from another supplier or another vehicle, it looks like that style pump was used on a lot of other GM products. However, it's a little bit different on the new ones. You can find one, it's an ANCO 61-02, that you can take the bellows from it and put it onto that pump. However, the bellows are significantly stiffer than the original one, and you kind of have to, at least from the comments that I've read, work it with your hand, you know, 100 times in order to make it it actually work. So that may be an option moving forward. The other option is just to try and adapt an electric pump to it, which is probably what I'll end up doing with it. But let me show you how this pump works. So when ground is applied, because there's a constant 12 volts on this terminal here, so you press the button, it grounds the circuit, this coil is energized and pulls this pawl tight up against the ratchet so that the plunger can then move. So I've got a little Milwaukee M12 battery, which these are awesome, by the way, set up here. We've got power applied to the bottom terminal, and I'm going to apply ground, if you will, and this will, in theory, pull this tight up against that pawl so that it can grab. just like that. How cool is that? Well, at least some part of this does work. Well, in some ways this video was kind of a bust. I had really wanted to show putting the washer pump together, rebuilding it, and kind of the process that I used for doing that. But that kind of gets me to another point that I wanted to talk to y'all about. I've got some issues with the engine. You heard from the very beginning I've been battling a misfire with the car. And sometimes it's very subtle. But sometimes it's really bad. When the engine is cold, it's pretty horrible. As the engine warms up, it gets a little bit better, but where I notice it most is with valve adjustment. Now on these cars, you should be able to just set the plunger on the hydraulic lifter kind of about halfway, you know, about a half turn from zero lash, and it take up all the slack. But from the moment that we got the car, no matter what I've done for it, the number 6 intake has had a problem where I can get it to where the lifter is set at zero lash plus a half turn cold, and it will rattle terribly. Like no matter what I do, that lifter is not pumping up. So it's got good oil flow through it, but it's not right. The difference on this car between rattle and hanging a valve open is sometimes as little as a 1/16 of a turn, which tells me that that lifter is not pumping up or that the geometry is not correct. So I put a dial indicator on the engine, and on all of the valves except for number 6, I'm getting about 350 thousandths of lift. Now I know that the specs say like 380, but I'm not really worried about the total number because on number 6 intake, it's like 290. So we're about 50 thousandths off of where it should be. I've been afraid from the very moment that I first started messing with this, that it's got one cam lobe that's worn down more than the others. And that's what's causing the misfire. That's why I can't adjust that one valve right. Now that puts me in a dilemma here because you guys really love this car. You really love having me make videos on it, and I want to keep making videos on it. However, I've got a couple of choices on what we can do. I think 3 choices on what we can do. First choice is leave it as it is. Drive it when the engine goes, you know, it goes. I couldn't in good faith sell the car the way that it is right now, knowing that there is a potential problem with the engine. So that option doesn't really seem the greatest to me, which leaves me only 2 choices now. Option 1 is I can find a used engine and just put it in and hope that, you know, it's good. It won't have any of the new components, the new rings in it, the new rod bearings, you know, all of those things. But it might be a good, you know, cheap alternative to get the car running and driving and going down the road. The third option is I can go a little crazy with it and pull the engine back out for the 3rd time, completely rebuild the thing, take it down, split the case, every nut, bolt, and screw on this thing, new pistons, new jugs, new cam, new crank, new everything on it. What that means is a huge difference in money. But I'm willing to do it for y'all under one condition. My one condition is leave a comment below about what you would like to see happen with it. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel, you like the videos, leave a comment below, share these videos with your friends. We've got a new membership feature coming out where you can monetarily support the channel, so make sure you check out that. There's 3 different levels of support, so you can pick the one that suits your needs best. So make sure you leave a comment below about what you'd like to see for the direction of the Corvair. Thank you so much for watching. God bless you. Take care. We'll see you next time.